Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
And I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Indeed, you are, people who listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Welcome back to another edition, another episode, another chin wag, another chat, another conversation. I'm your one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast and your host today, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. Ah, boy. People, I want this one to be a little quick one. This is gonna be 15 minutes long, maximum. Check the timer. Start your stopwatch. Listen, we got a chat. We got a chat on this one. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you can see all the stuff scrolling at the bottom at Carib Cricket on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. We're still on that road to 5K, etc. Become a patron of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. You can head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. Help keep the movement on the road. You know, your funding helps us do what we do. With that admin out of the way, though, we got to talk. Yesterday, on day 3 of the brand spanking new Headley versus Week series, Team West Indies Academy defeated Team Headley by 7 wickets. Jano star. Jano. 7 wickets. I got to drink water. I got to lubricate my mouth here to try and explain this one, because let's get this out of the way first things first. Because I've been in like the live chat, as watching the stream, and lots of you probably watching this particular video have been in it with me, and I've been going back and forth with a lot of people. Some of you took exception to some of the things I was saying, and I make no apologies, whatever. My whole thing on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and I hope I speak for Santoki as well, is that we're always about looking at the long term, right? And this result is both positive for the long term. Well, no, sorry. We're about looking at the short term, medium term, long term. And this result has both positive and negative connotations to it. But I think the biggest talking point that has to come out of this first game of the Headley Week series has to be the negatives. But I'm going to get to that in a second, because everyone will say, oh, Mash, you don't want to focus on the academy and so on and so forth. So let me actually start with the positives first things first. Well done to the youth. Well done to them. The academy, West Indies Academy, which was first started in July last year, largely comprises of players between the age of 19 to 25-ish, 24-ish. And these are players, generally speaking, who, you know how it goes, people. They go to like an under-19 World Cup. You have players who show flashes or sustained glimpses of brilliance. Think an Alzari Joseph, think of a Jayden Seales. And they're the exception, because your players like Alzari Joseph and Jayden Seales, even a Shimron Hetmeyer at the time, get fast-tracked into West Indies colours. But for every Alzari, Jayden, and a Shimron Hetmeyer, you have players like a Tevin Imlach, right? Or in the current West Indies Academy, you have players like a Nyeem Young, who star at under-19 level, but then find that transition from under-19s cricket to senior cricket is stunted. Not because they're not talented, but because the developmental structures within the Caribbean, both within their individual territories and in general across the Caribbean, do not do well at converting that natural ability that our under-19 cricketers have into senior level cricket. And to be fair, that's girls and boys, right? So if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, go and listen to our episodes on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, whether on audio platforms or whether on YouTube, with Jimmy Adams, Director of Cricket, and Graham West, who is effectively, you could argue, head of academy coaching, right? Go and look at the interviews we did with both of them in 2 different episodes, and you'll understand the academy structures and what it's all about. If you don't even understand how the academy structure works, you really and truly should be watching those interviews first, because otherwise you're probably coming from a position of ignorance, right? Now, it's important to point out to people that the academy structure does not mean that these boys are in Antigua 24/7. They're kind of there for a period of time, then they go back to their territories. They're there for a period of time, then they go back to their territories. So it's not like they're boarding in Antigua 24/7. You would have noticed that in the recently concluded West Indies Red Bull Championship, some of the academy players were playing with franchises. Not all of them, but some of them. So Kevlon Anderson got 3 games with Guyana. Kurt McKenzie got 3 games with Jamaica. So whilst it's not all of them, some Keegan Simmons got, in fact, he might have even got 4 or 5 games with Trinidad. Obviously, Imlak has been drafted in because Rivaldo Clark got injured. But the point is, some of these academy boys were getting game time in the recently concluded West Indies Red Bull Championship. And that's the point as well of the academy. They're not supposed to just stay with the academy and not progress. The proof of their progression at West Indies Academy level, or part of the proof of that progression, is their own domestic franchises then taking a punt on them and saying, you know what, you're good enough to be part of our top 11 within the region. So that's part of the academy structure, in so much as developing these boys so they get more opportunities that they probably normally wouldn't get. Look at somebody like a Jahid Gooley in Trinidad. He was part of that 2016 Under-19 World Cup team. And look how long it's taken him now at the age of 25, going on 26, to finally properly break through into the Trinidad side. That's the type of thing we're talking about, where academies, just because you're talented at Under-19, the territorial developmental structures does not necessarily push a youth on after they've gone to Under-19 World Cup and so on and so forth. So, all of that notwithstanding, we must give huge props to the West Indies Academy side and the coaching team around them for defeating Team Headley. The Team Headley side was made up of fully experienced senior domestic pros: Kieran Powell, Shane Mosley, Darren Bravo, Kavem Hodge, Tevin Walcott, Josh Da Silva, Justin Graves, Akeem Jordan, Anderson Phillip, Chaim Holder, Marquino Mindley, and obviously Sunil Ambris, who came in as a injury replacement for Shane Mosley. When you add up all of the domestic and, in some cases, like a Darren Bravo, the international level experience that Team Headley had, there is no way on earth that the West Indies Academy should have been able to beat them in the way they did. People, this was comfortable. It wasn't a narrow victory. It wasn't a squeaky victory. It was comfortable. Team Headley got dominated. In fact, if it wasn't for Josh Da Silva's unbeaten 136 on the first day, this match probably would have been over in day 2 or even earlier on day 3. Team Headley got moved to. And it's an embarrassment, but we'll touch on that in a bit. Shout out Kevlon Anderson. So Kevlon Anderson wasn't even in the Guyana team to begin with in the domestic championship. Through Andre Coley, he got a gig playing club cricket in Trinidad, scored a huge volume of runs in Trinidad club cricket, and then Guyana took a punt on him, and Kevlon got 3 games in the latter half of the West Indies Championship. So in some ways, because of that kind of glut of runs he scored in club cricket in Trinidad, Kevlon Anderson's 153, which is a fantastic knock, we cannot understate it, but possibly, okay, getting 153 might be a surprise, but him doing well shouldn't be a surprise within reason. Kurt McKenzie, 50 at the top of the order. Congrats to the young man as well. He obviously had shown ability at under-19 level as well. And obviously, with the West Indies Academy first innings total of 323, that was largely off the back of McKenzie and Anderson, who provided over 200 runs of that 323. So we must give them props. In the Team Headley first innings, the bowling from the West Indies Academy, Johan Lane, the pacer from Barbados, 5 for 39 from 10 overs, was a standout. Everybody else, I say everybody else, I mean, Ned was tidy, 1 for 32 from 18 overs. He kind of did what the Ashmead Ned does. And everybody else was somewhere between passable to a bit poor. But Johan Lane was the one who kind of ripped out the top order of the Team Headley batting. So when it came round now for Team Headley to bat the second time, I think it was normal to assume, okay, maybe that first innings was a bit of an aberration. Maybe 259 for 9 because Mosley got injured was an aberration, and they'll show their senior class in the second innings. Well, not even unfortunately, they did even worse in the second innings. Bowled out for 1-2-2. This time, Kelvin Pittman was the pick of the bowlers. 7 overs, 3 for 27. Nyeem Young was actually the pick of the bowlers. 10 overs, 3 for 17. And Josh Bishop at the back end, 12 overs, 2 for 18. But here's my problem. As much as I want to praise the academy, and I do praise them for being disciplined, in terms of with the bat, the few batters who did well, they played the ball on their merits, they played straight, they showed good judgment, etc. With the bowlers, the ones who bowled well, bowled disciplined lines and lengths. But I am not here to hear people tell me, the bowling was top tier, the bowling was excellent. No, I'm not here to hear that. Because unless I was watching a different game to everybody else, all I saw was disciplined line and lengths by the majority of the West Indies Academy bowlers. And that is to be applauded. But the bowling wasn't terrifying, unplayable bowling from ball one through to the end of the innings. You can do both things, right? So it's not black or white. You can say that the bowling was disciplined and tidy and ask questions of the Team Headley techniques, yeah? But you can also say, when you watch the dismissals of the Team Headley batters, you can also say that the batting was impatient, it lacked discipline, it showed weak mentality, it showed unprofessionalism. Go back and look through. Go and watch the highlights if you haven't done so. Go back and look through the dismissals. Watch all 19 dismissals for the Team Headley batsmen and count how many of them were due to poor batsmanship. How many of them? How many of them were due to poor misjudgment? How many of them were due to loose shots playing away from their body? How many of them were soft dismissals? I am not trying to denigrate what the West Indies Academy did. Big up the youngsters, big up the youths. But you also, as a keen aficionado of West Indies domestic cricket, you have to look at the batting from the senior batters and say it was piss poor. It was piss poor. And I'm not here to praise people only without looking on the other hand and saying what the reality was. The batting was piss poor relative to the level of domestic and international first-class experience that Team Headley had. If that West Indies Academy team played against another set of senior professionals in a top tier country, do you think the level of the West Indies Academy bowling would have bowled a team out for 259 and 122? And I know that's the hypotheticals and if buts and whatevers, etc. But how much do you rate the bowling? How much do you rate it? How far can you rate the bowling without accepting that the batting was piss poor? Listen, and let's also have this right. Of the West Indies Academy players that played in that match, only five of the 11 were making their first class debut. Do you hear what I'm saying? 5 of the 11 were making their first class debut. Do you hear what I am saying to you? That means that 5 of the 11 didn't even play in the just concluded Red Bull Championship. Of the ones that did play, it's not like they did like fantastic performances. Kevlon Anderson played 3 matches for Guyana and averaged 21. Kurt McKenzie played 3 matches for Jamaica and averaged 18. Teddy Bishop played 1 match for the Windward Islands, for example. So the ones who did play in the domestic championship, it's not like they were doing an absolute madness. And then they come into this Team Headley versus West Indies Academy game, and they're on form, and the stats are showing, boy, we got some serious talent on our hands. Boy, Team Headley are going to be in for a serious challenge. Who went into this match saying, boy, Team Headley are going to be in for a serious challenge? We went into this match hoping that the West Indies Academy would compete against them. What we didn't expect is West Indies Academy to move to them and deal with them, like Team Headley are a set of little utes. Team Headley were playing schoolboy cricket out there with a few exceptions here and there. Even the bowling from Team Headley. If you go back and watch the back end of the West Indies Academy's first innings, at one point they were 130 for 5. West Indies Academy ended on 323. And anybody who actually was watching what was going on, some of the bowling at the back end from the fast men was woeful, just spraying the ball all over the place. Bowling without a plan, bowling bumpers, inaccurate bumpers. The bowling was loose. And the bowling didn't show in the back end of the West Indies Academy innings that these players had the level of experience that they have, if that makes sense. It's almost as if Team Headley turned up to this game, some of them, if not a lot of them, turned up to this game thinking, yeah, as long as we do our basics, we can just dominate these youths. And that's why I think so many of them got out playing away from their body. I think they didn't treat the bowling with the level of respect it deserved. I think they thought they could just dominate because of their level of experience. Well, boy, they got shown. They got shown up. They got shown up, boy. And now it begs the following question. I just see I've gone past 15 minutes. Let me try to wrap this up. So now it begs the following question. It's only one game. It's only one game. And certainly when Team Headley play Team Weeks in 10 days' time, because the next game is obviously Team Weeks versus West Indies Academy. When Team Headley play Team Weeks, some of the people in that team, if not all of them, better come with a stronger performance. And why, I hear you say? Because the West Indies A team is going to Bangladesh on May the 9th, which is 3 days after the end of the Team Headley versus Team Weeks match. I shouldn't go by social media. Sorry. I shouldn't go by social media. See how stressed I am. Let me drink some water. I shouldn't go by social media alone. And I shouldn't go by what people are saying in the chat, in the live stream, who are watching the matches. But that's where you kind of pick up people's immediate reactions, etc. And obviously the commentators, big up Joel Manning, big up Vernon Springer, etc., who were commentating on the match. The A team that gets picked to go to Bangladesh shouldn't hinge on the 3 games in the Team Headley Team Weeks tri-series. That's nonsense. So let me just say this to people who have no sense. Darren Bravo should go on the team, should go on the A-team tour to Bangladesh. Why? Because even though he failed in this game versus West Indies Academy, even though he scored a 5 and I think a 20 or whatever it was he did, right? Darren Bravo was the second highest run scorer in the recently concluded Red Bull Championship. You cannot tell me that just because a man fails in one game versus West Indies Academy, that immediately rules the man out. The 5 rounds of the West Indies Championship still have to count for something significant. And if we are accepting that the tour matches in Bangladesh are effectively the preparation that the majority of West Indies players are going to have before India turn up in early July, and if we accept that that A-team tour is going to be the majority of the preparation, Red Bull preparation that these players get, then anybody who you are seriously considering to be in contention for that test series probably has to go on that A-team tour. So as much as we were all chatting in the chat saying, well, boy, they might as well send the West Indies Academy on that A-team tour. Well, on one hand, I hear you, and that chat comes out of the frustration at us seeing a bag of fart whilst watching the match, yeah, from the seniors. That comes out of the frustration of seeing yet more fart. But it don't make no sense. Long term, it's good to see that these youths are able to stick it on the seniors, beat them, and deal with them, because we hope, therefore, that some of these youngsters over time will progress and maybe become staples of future West Indies teams. That's the hope. But we've been here before, of course, right? But in terms of the immediacy of an A-team tour to Bangladesh, that has to be seen in the context of India turning up in July. And that means that you don't just discount all of these senior players just because they flopped. Yes, an A-team is for medium to long-term development. But if we do not have any red ball cricket prior to India turning up, then we've got to be realistic. And the A-team tour has to be seen in the context of also prep time for India. So you have to balance on both hands. I'm taking Darren Bravo to India. So within Team Headley, although Bravo flopped, I'm still taking him to India. Am I taking anybody else from Team Headley to India? If they want Josh De Silva to get some red ball game, then obviously Josh De Silva goes. Of the bowlers, you assume Bangladesh. I mean, of the bowlers, you assume Akeem Jordan will go. I don't know about Phillip. I don't know about Mindley, but you would assume they also have a chance as well. And even given that Chaim Holder appears to have leapfrogged over Brian Charles, you assume he will have a chance as well. I'm not saying they'll all go, but I'm talking about people who you would expect to be taken on that 18 tour of Bangladesh. From West Indies Academy, if I fall into that trap of the short-termism of going, well, boy, West Indies Academy just beat the senior side, so we should really invest in them, and then of that performance, the only person you realistically would take, because it's such a big knock, you take a Kevlon Anderson. I'm not saying I would, but I'm just saying if we're being realistic, you take a Kevlon Anderson, and that would only be for exposure and developmental purposes. But I don't think you take anybody else. Not when you've got an Ninja tour on the horizon and you have to be thinking in terms of the immediacy of that particular series against India. By all means, if you disagree with me, get at me in the comments below. Listen, 21 minutes is on the clock. I need to wrap this up. So let me just say one last thing. And I will speak to Jimmy Adams, Graham West, Johnny Grave, etc., to get some further clarification on this. But my understanding is as follows. These West Indies Academy boys came into the West Indies Academy in July. That means in July 2023, which is approximately 2.5 months, 3 months away, that will be their 1 year stint done. It was only ever supposed to be a 1 year program. Now, what I don't know is if some of these boys or young men will be retained to carry on for a further year, or if we get a fresh cohort of 19 to 24-year-olds, etc., for the next year of the West Indies Academy. I've long said on both Twitter, Instagram lives, etc., Instagram question and answer sessions, even probably on these videos, until every territory builds an academy that is similar to what Cricket West Indies have done at Coolidge, we cannot trust territories to develop our players. So if any of these youths leave the West Indies Academy in July and they're not retained for whatever particular reason, do we trust the territories to then be able to develop these youths further? Do we trust the coaching in the territories to move their game on? Me personally, I don't. Do you lot? Get at me in the comments below, at us at Carib Cricket, Twitter and Instagram. So my thing is, speaking to Cricket West Indies directly, you might as well retain as many of these youths as you possibly can, because it's the only way to guarantee that they're getting the level of coaching and professional development that gives them the best chances of success. I know that there's plans for a West Indies Academy tour abroad and so on and so forth. Until the other territories can mimic something, even 50% of what we've got at Coolidge, I do not trust the developmental processes for these youths to then kick on. I don't even trust that these youths will even get first class or super 50 opportunities for some of these territories, because if you use somebody like a Trinidad, Jason Mohammed will play until he's 77 years old. And that's no shade on Jason Mohammed. He is still contributing, but these territories don't like to promote the youths, or they take too long to promote the youths. So if we know the territories can't do their job properly, thinking in the bigger picture now. So this is what I said at the start, and I'll say it again, thinking bigger picture, people. As great as it is to see the youths deal with the seniors, do we trust the developmental processes for these youths' game to kick on once they leave the West Indies Academy? I'll be Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. That was supposed to be 15 minutes, and as usual, I lied to you. It ended up being 25 minutes, 10 minutes longer. Get at me in the comments below. What did you think of that Team Headley versus West Indies Academy match? Positives, negatives, great for the future, bad for the future, bad for the short term, good for the short term. Who knows, people? Get at me. You don't have to agree. I'm just here to start the conversation. I'll be Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. Thank you, and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules seem coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.